The crank.
Adrian Wojnarowski reporting. Carmelo Anthony is on his way back to being reunited with his friend LeBron James, going to the LA Lakers.
Ooh.
And we've been hearing about this for a while. These guys met when they were in high school. They played a huge game against us. And there's a great piece that Howard Beck, our friend at Sports Illustrated, wrote talking about them sitting in a stairwell in a hallway at the hotel the night before the game and just becoming friends, basically. Two guys who were in similar situations in high school who could know what that pressure was like to have the eyes of the whole country on them when they were so young. They have been incredibly close ever since. We have been waiting for the time when Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James play basketball together in the NBA. And we have it now. Carmelo Anthony is going to the LA Lakers. What do you make of that, Perk?
Reunited and it feels so good. I tried to tell people yesterday, Rachel, when producer Steve was saying we had to leave out, I couldn't have a chance to redeem myself when Zach Lowe and Ramona and Matt Barnes was disagreeing with me about the big three of the Lakers and the big three of the Nets and who was going to have the better impact. And all of a sudden, guess what? Like them old people used to tell me, my grandmother, boy, don't you touch that stove, it's hot. And then all of a sudden I had to learn on my own not to go touch the stove because I went and touched it anyway. All of a sudden you got to go get the aloe vera plants because you got a burn mark on your hand because I told y'all so. Look, what Rob Pelinka did yesterday, all he did, Rachel, was set the temperature. He set the temperature. He set the temperature by going sign Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, Wayne Ellington, and all of those guys. And now all of a sudden he had the cake ready to bake and he went put it in the oven by sealing the deal and go and get Carmelo Anthony. The mission is complete along with Dwight Howard. Book it. The Lakers are on their track, back on track. You go ahead, Zach. Say what you got to say. Go ahead. Do what you do.
I think you lost Zach at aloe vera, but continue.
Look, I have no idea what just happened, except I'm kind of hungry now. But I don't know what all that was. Look, this is
the truth. The man was speaking the truth. Continue.
This is a great story, and if I recall correctly, Carmelo made the playoffs his rookie year, and LeBron did not. I believe LeBron went to one of his playoff games. I mean, that's to go support him. So it's a beautiful story. And look, this is the kind of flyer the Lakers were going to have to take. They did not have any cap resources left to go. They're going to have to get guys that are chasing rings on the minimum. And Carmelo, to his credit, everyone said, all he wants to do is ISO and shoot twos. In Portland, he bought into a role as a spot-up shooter, shot the three well. That's the role he's going to have to play for the Lakers. But with all of these guys, whether it's Ellington, Bazemore, Ariza, Carmelo, with the exception of Ariza, I think the big question is going to be, when push comes to shove, when you're in the conference finals, when you're in the second round of the playoffs, whatever it is, can you stay on the floor defensively? Do the Lakers, who have made their bones, all the sexy stuff, whatever, they have made their bones on defense.
Yep.
Have they hurt their defense too much in all of this roster building? I think that remains to be seen, but they are going to be a really interesting team.
Well, let me ask you a question. Woj also reporting Malik Monk to the Lakers. What do you think now as you look at the whole roster?
I mean, you have $130 million. There's 5 guys on your roster. That's it. So you're left with the veteran minimum exception. You're left with your $5.9 million tax minimum. What really hurt them was Alex Caruso going to the Bulls. Yeah. Because you had bird rights on him. You could have exceeded the cap. You still have Taylor Horton Tucker as a restricted free agent. This is kind of the name to keep an eye on. Not as far as returning back to the Lakers. You still have bird rights. You can maybe go out and do a sign and trade, and maybe you can flip Schroeder to a team and bring back multiple players here. The market is chilly right now. Yeah. I mean, there is limited spending out there, and maybe you can take a team and flip him to a team that needs point guard. But Trevor Ariza, Dwight Howard, Wayne Ellington, guys who had played there before are all back, but that's what happens when you have $130 million committed to 5 players.
Yeah, Laker fans wonder if they can maybe use that asset to go get a shooter to put on that squad as well. And lastly, let's go up to Chicago because they added a pair to the backcourt there. It's been a while since Chicago's been in the mix or doing something. They're trying to build a little something here in the interim.
I loved what Chicago was able to do. Point guard was a priority for them, especially with Kobe White out for an extended period of time. And they had limited flexibility, so they acted as a team over the salary cap. So what they were able to do is they were able to flip Tomas Satoransky and then use Garrett Temple in a sign and trade, and then they go out and get Lonzo Ball. That's That is a good move for them as far as an upgrade there.
Right.
Alex Caruso on the mid-level exception. The big question is going to be, and Brian Windhorst talked about it this morning, Zach LaVine. Renegotiation eligible. They don't have cap space right now to go out and do it. But the roster is improved.
Yeah.
And that's the big goal. So he can still sign a big contract next offseason, but he's going to have to wait. But I think the goal is improve the roster around him, let him wait 1 year, and that money will be sitting there.
Yeah, and that's the thing for him. If they make a run to the playoffs like the Knicks did out of nowhere, maybe that'll satisfy him for the season and get paid in the summer of 2022. Bobby Marks stays paid. Look at that suit.
Should we call NBA expensive agency? There is nothing free about these guys are all signing big tickets. And the first day of free agency full of action. The big players were on South Beach. Miami Heat working towards completing a sign and trade, bringing Kyle Lowry from the Raptors. 2019 champion expect to snag a 3-year deal. Then the Heat turned towards one of their own, working on a max extension with Jimmy Butler. Have to have him in the fold. The 31-year-old led the Heat to the 2020 NBA Finals, posted career highs last season in field goal percentage, assists, and led the NBA in steals. And also the Heat took care of sharpshooter Duncan Robinson, agreeing to a 5-year, $90 million deal. Get this, that's the largest ticket by any undrafted player in league history. Robinson joined Steph Curry. Joining Steph Curry and Klay Thompson as the only players with multiple seasons of 250 made threes while shooting over 40%. And then the late word, Tim Bontemps is confirming PJ Tucker signs a 2-year, like $15 million deal. So you look at how the Heat project for next season. Let's just say they project really well. Wow. A star-studded lineup they can throw out on the court now. NBA front office insider Bobby Marks joining us now. And Pat Riley had himself a day, huh?
Man, you got to bring out the big calculator for this.
Wow. and we have something along those lines here. But what a day for Riley and the Heat. And, maybe completely transforming their roster now. Obviously, took care of some of their own. But you tell me, where do you want to start here? And how much better are the Heat today than they were yesterday?
Yeah, well, I'll start with it. They're a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. I'm putting them up there with Brooklyn. I'm putting them up with Milwaukee, ahead of Philadelphia. I think these moves solidify that, especially with Kyle Lowry. I think the gymnastics as far as how they were able to do everything, it started yesterday with Goran Dragic exercising his $19.4 million option. That allowed them to stay over the salary cap. They didn't go under the cap. They could have signed Lowry outright if they wanted to. They didn't do that. And when you take a player out like, Dragic and probably Precious Achiuwa, and then you add Kyle, into that mix, his number is going to be a little bit higher than that 25, right around 27. That keeps you in the game here. What they were able to do, though, is Duncan Robinson. You had his bird right, so now you can exceed the salary cap to bring him back right around $16 million, and you keep on adding, and they'll be able to stay under the luxury tax, under the hard cap. When you look at here, they're under, and then you look at a player like, we'll see where PJ Tucker is down here. I think we might even have him in the 4s. Yeah, we got him in the 4s. And then you had PJ Tucker because what happened is that you still had here's PJ, you still had your mid-level exception. So you had your $9.5 million mid-level exception. PJ gets about $7 million of that. And then when you slide him in there, you're still under the luxury tax.
And How's that possible?
And you can fill out the rest of your roster with minimum guys. You're probably going to lose Kendrick Nunn, who's a restricted free agent. But, yeah, you basically have turned over your roster, 2 years after they made the Jimmy Butler deal, something into nothing, and now this is a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. That is amazing how quickly you can transform. It's also amazing how you can go the other way. Toronto was 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
The Raptors were unrecognizable now